Okay, this is one of the most informal sessions I've ever spoken at, so it's like, there's no even four walls at all. Okay, so how's everyone feeling tonight?
Yes.
Good, okay. So usually my professional job is a public speaking coach. So what I used to do, or what I always have to do is, I tend to be a very structured person, or God forbid, I was an accounting student. So, I have checklists, and usually I would run with organizers and say, who are the audience, what do they want to know? So Rahul did me a great service to say, free flow. Okay, so I'm just going to free flow. I'm just going to take about 10 to 15 minutes to share a bit about my experiences. And if there are any questions, which I hope there would be, post my entire session, feel free to jump in. I hope to curate a very small, light-hearted conversation. Okay, so long story short, I worked about a year on this book. So this book has been a baby of mine. So I've been a public speaking coach for about 5 years. And throughout this 5 years, there was one day I had a conversation with one of my clients. And my client said, Ben, coaching has been good, but how can we learn more about public speaking and better still from Asian leaders? And then that got me thinking. Seemingly all the literature, about 20 to 30 books I've sort of read on public speaking were all very Western focused. They were either written by Western authors on Western speakers and for a Western audience. So that gave me a epiphany to say, hey, maybe I could find a book that could cater to the Asian crowd. And I started to interview 12 different Asian CEOs, so they range from local celebrities all the way to MNCs, leaders of multinationals from Bain & Company, LinkedIn, Mondelez International. So today I'm going to share with you 3 quick lessons. Originally, the talk is titled, How to Influence Like a CEO. I think that's too big a hat for me to wear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you what works for me. So what works for me may not work for you, but I hope whatever I'm going to share has a bit of semblance, so at least you walk away getting some value. Everyone good to go?
Yep.
Okay, so the first lesson that I've learned, maybe to set the stage first. How many of you have heard the story of a white dog and black dog? No one. Wonderful. So whatever, if I say it wrongly, no one would know as well. Okay. So this story has its roots in terms of a young monk trying to seek enlightenment. So who would a young monk try to seek enlightenment from? Anyone? Make it casual. Easy. Old monk, right? Okay. So that was what this young monk did. A young monk went to seek enlightenment, and he was searching and searching for a teacher, a guru, someone that would lead him towards this path of nirvana. And he trudged through down the valleys, up the mountains, and he finally, he reached this mansion where he saw the old monk. So you, sir, do you mind being my volunteer? Okay. So your name, sir?
Yeah, I'm Reiss.
Reiss, is it? Okay, Reiss. Okay. So imagine I'm the young monk, and I went to the entire mansion, and then I finally see the old monk. The old monk, as anyone would imagine, he's old, he's wise, he was dressed in white, he had white eyebrows, white mustache. Everything about him was, shouting purity. But what was interesting was, as the young monk was approaching to Reiss, he noticed 2 very interesting phenomena. He saw a white dog on the right-hand side, as well as a black dog on the left-hand side. So what happened for this white dog was obedient, was docile, was the nice dog. So as the young monk, being the visitor coming in, he decided to fetch the slippers and did everything to make the visitor feel at home. He fetched tea for the old monk, basically the dog that everyone wants. By any chance, does anyone here have a dog at home? Okay, you probably can relate, okay? So what happens was that the exact converse happened for the dog on the left-hand side. It was a black dog. The black dog was ferocious. When the visitor started to come, he would growl at the dog. Started to bite the dog, started to knock down furniture, and even was harassing the whole master. At this point in time, you need to know that the young monk came with a mission to get enlightenment. But later, he found out a different lesson, and he had a different question. So he asked the old monk, you have a very docile, obedient white dog, and you have a very ferocious, nasty black dog. And I'm sure when you put these 2 dogs together, these 2 dogs will fight. Okay, so he asked the old monk, which I have told Raj to answer, when the white dog and the black dog fights, which is the dog that wins? Okay, so you have to make a choice. I'm going to ask everyone, I'm going to throw a poll. It's either white or black. There's no 50 shades of grey. Okay, everyone's totally aligned on this? Okay, how many of you say it's a white dog? Okay, you ma'am, why the white dog?
The white dog would not react.
So the white dog would not react, so it'll take the higher paths, and in that, he sort of won the battle. Okay, how many of you, do you say white or black? Do you raise your hand?
White.
White. Why white, sir?
Because I like colours.
You like the color and hence you're wearing white. Okay, fair enough. And who would say it's the black dog? Chris, why? Why black dog?
I believe in black.
You believe in black and you're dressed in black. Okay, so we are very colors biased, okay? So what happened was that the old monk then gave us a very enlightened answer. And which is the dog that wins, sir?
Oh, it's not every time the same. It depends on
It depends.
some situations.
Okay, you seem to... Sorry?
The dog that you feed.
Okay, and what the master said was exactly what this gentleman said. The dog that wins the battle is the dog that I feed. The dog that wins the battle is the dog that I feed. Okay, so for that, I actually didn't tell him the answer. I was putting him in a spot. Let's give him a round of applause. Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to give him a copy of my book. Okay, so I'm telling this story because this has its application. So you don't just walk away with a white dog and black dog. Think of this white dog and black dog as the conversations in your head. Okay, have you all watched Hollywood films where there's always the angel on your right hand side and then the devil on the left hand side? They're always in the conversation. So for example, if I'm a guy and I have interest for Olga, and then I would love to, perhaps go and ask her out for a date. My white dogs, my angels would be saying, hey, Ben, just give it a shot. She's looking at me. Maybe she's interested in me. And then the black dog or devil would say, oh man, please, she would never even wink at you. You're a waste of your time. Okay? And fundamentally, one of the biggest lessons I learned is there's always this battle between your white and black dog. And in the context of influence, are you, one, aware of the white dogs that manage you? So in my work as a public speaking coach, I often tell them, what is the dog that's speaking for you right now? At this very instant, at this very moment. And this is a practice of consciousness. Okay, so that's the first lesson. If you feed your white dogs more, your white dogs become more empowered. It will then make you stronger. It will feed you, empower you to do the right things, whatever right is. Okay, that's the first lesson. The second lesson I hope to share really comes from a lot of a concern and perhaps a question that a lot of people ask. You say, Ben, you're pretty much a young guy. And how do you manage to write this book and manage to court all the CEOs of that kind of stature? So this lesson will be helpful if you're in sales and business development marketing. I sort of got my head around and I invented this concept of insurance. How many of you have bought insurance for yourself? Okay, so why do you buy insurance?
To secure myself.
Okay, to secure yourself. So the whole concept of insurance is basically you buy something to reduce the risk of something happening. Or if that thing happens, the whole cost of it will be lowered. And I realize every time when I meet a prospect, whether it's to interview for a book, I always ask them, how can I create a sense of insurance for them? So the lesson came by for me very much easy. So I like to see things as, what are the things that will make them fear or make them feel it's risky, that would increase the risk, and what would then also lower the risk. So as I approach every CEO for an interview, I knew that all those things that would increase my perceived risk was, one, I was young. Two, I was a first-time author. Three, maybe I didn't have a track record in terms of interviewing people. But what could I do to then lower the risk and create a sense of insurance? So what I did was, you would not imagine, but my first CEO that I landed as an interview prospect was actually having a lunch with my friend. So I was having a friend with a college mate, and I say, hey, Nelson, I'm actually writing a book, and I need to interview CEO, C-level people. And then he said, Ben, have you heard of this CEO so-and-so? Which I will not name for very good reasons, you'll find out why. I said, no, I haven't. He said, you have to speak to him. So what happens was that Nelson was dating a girl, and this girl's sister was being dated by the CEO. It was this square relationship. It's just that the guys weren't dating each other, okay? So the square didn't connect. And that was my first sort of landing an opportunity. And what happened and what really worked for me was when I went to the second CEO, and then I told her, hey, I have already spoken to the first CEO. So I created and I lowered the risk. So that's my second lesson that I'd like to share. And perhaps the last lesson, which probably you'll be all interested to find out, is when you're talking about influence. I don't know what works for you, but I think what really works for me is being authentic. So who you see on stage is really the band that you get off stage. So I never really believe in being more, being bigger, being better than who I am. So usually I always preface my conversations with my perceived threats, weaknesses, shortcomings. and I use it very, very often. So that really allows the people who I'm interacting with to really believe in me, and I do so in full authenticity. So I have sort of put my time. It should be about 10 plus minutes. That's all I have to share. Do you all have any questions? Anyone?
What was your inspiration to write the book?
Sorry?
What was your inspiration to write the book?
I think the inspiration to write this book was really one, I wanted to persuade and let people know that Asians have a voice as well, because Asians have all sometimes been stereotyped as, we are a bit soft-spoken, we're reserved. We always think before we act or speak. And I wanted to sort of debunk that sort of myth. And I think on a second level, it's really hoping that my fellow Asian peers could also speak up. So those are two inspirations.
You interviewed Asian CEOs.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So what were the major differences you found between the cultural, the West and the East in terms of CEOs and how they led?
Okay. So that was one of the interest topics as well. I wanted to find out, for example, the Western CEOs that I knew versus vis-a-vis the Asian CEOs. So it turns out that when we talk about globalization, the lines have been very much blurred. So in fact, I wanted to use that as an initial thesis, but some of the Asian CEOs that I've spoken to, they actually think in a very westernized fashion. And conversely, I know of Western CEOs who are actually practicing Buddhism, meditation, which are pretty much Oriental kind of beliefs. So long story short, I think it's a complex world down there. It's just one lens that we need to be mindful of. Yeah. So nothing too meaningful or empirical.
So you got a follow-up book coming out?
Sorry?
You got another book coming out?
Yes, I do.
What's about it?
Second one. Second one is more related to my pet topic of millennials. So I'm going to different organizations to look at how they manage young people. Yeah. Any other questions? You all sound very...
What difficulties do you face doing this work?
Big
Challenges.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge was getting through the bureaucracy. You know Kraft has the cheese and whatnot. His name is Pradeep Pant, so he's an Indian. And when I was speaking with him, I think what left the deepest impression was a story he shared with me of how one of the toughest speech he had to deliver in his entire corporate career. So he transformed Mondelez from a 1 billion to a 6 billion company in 5 years. So it's fivefold. But the biggest challenge wasn't like giving big speeches. One of the toughest speeches was actually going down to a Gillette factory in India and telling all the men that tomorrow, the very next day, you don't need to come to work anymore. So 300 people, they lost their jobs. And one thing that really made me realize that he cared so much was that he gave this speech not just to the men, but he said, in telling the men that, hey, you're going to lose your job, you don't need to come tomorrow, you're going to get a severance packet. But most importantly, he got the wives of the men there. And he even talked about the principles of financial management, because he knew that if the men got such a huge fortune overnight, they'll spend it on women, on drinks, whatsoever. So that got me thinking. On one level, he was a very practical man. But on a second level, on a very deeper level, he really cared for his people. So I think he was one of the CEOs that I spoke to who don't just put a name to a face, or face to a name, whichever the case is, but he really cared about people and the people whom he's leading. And he speaks with a lot of pride. For example, he was saying there was another CEO forum that he was speaking to, and there were like a group of like fellow CEOs that came over, and he realized that out of the 12 people, 8 of them were actually people who worked for him. And he took so much pride to say, these people work for me, and look where they are today. And I think those kind of leaders, these are the leaders that really inspire me. Yeah. Any one final question?
Just out of curiosity, during the process when you write your first book, do you ever feel like, this is not going anywhere, I want to quit?
All the time. Yeah. So Chris, you've worked on a book before, right? Have you not? Yep. So it happens to authors, and I think one of the biggest thing that I was telling myself or asking myself, maybe I should just save it as a .docx, a doc file in my laptop, and not just like put it out to life. But I think what worked for me was that I committed to too many people already. So imagine if you committed to 12 CEOs and say this book will come out to print, come to life by a certain date, that was like the big timer on top I had. But if I could have it my way, I probably would just walked out of this entire process. It can be very, very strenuous. It can be very emotionally draining. But at the end of it all, when my clients read this book and say they've gotten a lot of value, I think that makes the whole process worthwhile.
So besides the Kickstarter, how do you also market?
Pass back to Rahul or Chris. Thank you so much.